welcome to AT Insider. My name's Eleanor, and in this video, I'm going to be going over a comparison between Learning Ally and Bookshare, two audiobook platforms that are for people with disabilities. Now, I've already done a more in-depth review of Learning Ally, so if you want to check that out, I'll have it linked in one of the iCards above. In this video, I will be reviewing both platforms and go over their differences in cost, the differences in the narration style and type, the differences, of course, in the catalog of books and other print material they offer, and the differences in how easy it is to gain access to both of the platforms. All right, the first and I think most critical piece of information you need to understand about both platforms is that in order to access their content, you must have documentation of a disability. That can be a physical disability, a visual impairment, or a learning disability, but some type of disability that prevents you from accessing printed word. Again, that could be a physical disability that prevents you from moving your head or flipping pages, a visual impairment, or a learning disability like dyslexia, but something that inhibits you from accessing printed word like the general public. Now, the difference between Learning Ally and Bookshare is the documentation that they require. Learning Ally has two different options for you to gain access to their platform. The first one is to provide them with a copy of a 504 plan or an IEP. And their second option is to provide documentation from a clinician of a diagnosis of a disability. Bookshare is a little bit more lenient with their definition. All they require is some form of documentation from a, quote, professional with expertise in the field. I will have linked in the description below the actual or technical eligibility requirements for both Learning Ally and Bookshare. So if you don't yet have documentation or you're wondering if you qualify, you can go to the description. All right, the next big difference is in price. Bookshare is completely free. If you provide them with the proper documentation and you gain access to their platform, you will have access to Bookshare for the rest of your life for free. Learning Ally is a little bit different. You still need to provide documentation, but you also have to pay an additional $135 per year to gain access to their platform. So, big difference there. Bookshare is free. Learning Ally is $135 per year. All right, another big difference is their catalogs. Learning Ally has 80,000 titles. And Bookshare, on the other hand, has over 1.2 million unique titles. So you can imagine all of the different content that Bookshare has that Learning Ally doesn't. Learning Ally focuses on material for people in grades K through 12. So that would include a fair amount of textbook material, but that's mostly novels and storybooks and the like. Bookshare, on the other hand, has basically every printed material imaginable. They have textbooks, they have books if you're in law school or if you're in medical school, if you're studying for the MCAT. They have books, again, all of the regular books you could think about for ages K through 12. They also have manuals. If you're going to trade school, they have magazines and newspapers. All right, the next big difference is the availability of newer books or books that have just been released. Bookshare, in my experience, has every book imaginable, even if it has been released this year. They usually have it up on their platform within a month. Learning Ally, again, because of their much smaller catalog, sometimes doesn't even include newer books, but can take up to 2 years to get a book onto their site. All right, so if you haven't used either of these platforms before, you may be wondering, why does anybody choose Learning Ally over Bookshare? I mean, Bookshare has 15 times as many unique titles as Learning Ally. There's a larger variation in the titles that are available. They have newer titles, and it's free, right? Bookshare has a smaller catalog, they don't have recent books, and it's $135 a year. Well, to answer that question, you need to understand that Learning Ally is human narrated, while Bookshare is narrated by a robot. Before I talk more about how incredibly important that difference is, let me go to VoiceOver Eleanor first for her to show you what I actually mean between the differences in narration type. So here is Cat's Cradle, another example from both Bookshare and Learning Ally. Here's Bookshare.
One the day the world ended, see all me Jayana, my parents did, or nearly did. They called me John, Jonah, John. If I had been a Sam, I would have been a Jonah still, not because I have been unlucky for others, but because somebody or something has compelled me to be certain places at certain times, without fail. Conveyances and motives, both conventional and bizarre, have been provided, and, according to plan, at each appointed second, at each appointed place this Jonah was there. Listen, when I was a younger man.
So that is Bookshare, and here's Learning Ally.
The day the world ended. Call me Jonah. My parents did, or nearly did. They called me John. Jonah, John. If I had been a Sam, I would have been a Jonah still. Not because I have been unlucky for others, but because somebody or something has compelled me to be certain places at certain times, without fail. Conveyances and motives, both conventional and bizarre, have been provided. And according to plan, at each appointed second, at each appointed place, this Jonah was there. Listen, when I was a younger man, 2 wives ago, 250,000 cigarettes ago,
All right, so there is a comparison between Bookshare and Learning Ally. This next clip demonstrates that the user interface and the ability to change settings like pace and color are basically the same on both platforms. So if I go to settings here in Learning Ally, I just want to clarify that I could have the background color of the text highlighted if I'd like.
1. The day the world ended.
I could also make the rate of speech faster or slower on both platforms.
Call me Jonah. My parents did, or nearly did. They called me John. Jonah, John. If I had been a Sam, I would have been a Jonah still.
And if I go back to Bookshare, again, I can change basically the same things in the text, in the color, and I can also change the pace.
Listen, when I was a younger man, 2 wives ago, 250,000 cigarettes ago, 3,000 quarts of booze ago, when I was a much younger man, I began to collect material for a book to be called The Day the World Ended. The book was to be factual. The book was to be an account of what important Americans had done on the day when the first atomic...
All right, so there you go. All right, hopefully that sneak peek revealed to you at least a little bit how critical that difference is. And if it didn't, you have to trust me. I promise you, the difference between having a human narrated book and having a book read by a robot is immense. And it is especially critical if you are a younger student, right, in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, and you're trying to interact with a storybook and be introduced to language and storytelling for the first time. If you are someone who's trying to, for the first time, maybe read for pleasure. I was only able to read for pleasure because of Learning Ally, because the content isn't a droning, monotonous robot voice, right? Or if you're reading content for hours on end, having, again, a droning, monotonous robot voice makes it so that it is very easy to zone out or to disconnect from the content. And it is because of that critical difference that I'll say 70% of the time I rush to Learning Ally. I always check Learning Ally first. And 70% of the time they have the books I need. They have all of the books you think about off the top of your head, all the 100 most famous books, and they have a fair selection of textbooks. And I always check there first, and then the other 30% of the time I have to go to Bookshare, right, to find the books that are too new and haven't yet been added to the Learning Ally catalog, or find a book that isn't in those 80,000 titles, whether that be a textbook or a book that is very specific for high-level learning. So if you have documentation, please gain access to these platforms. They will change your life, I promise you. Both of them are amazing. Both of them were life-changing for me. So please, if you have proper documentation, go through the necessary steps to see if you're eligible and to gain access to the world of storytelling, the world of literature, the world of information that books make possible. And if you don't have documentation, I will also have linked in the description below part of Learning Ally's site where they actually have a directory of specialists in your area that can provide you with a proper evaluation and diagnosis. Now, I know a lot of this is cost prohibitive. $135 a year is not cheap, and gaining a diagnosis is also not cheap, but I promise you it is worth it. All right, I hope this video was helpful if you were confused at all between the differences in Bookshare and Learning Ally, Or if you're watching this for some other reason, I hope I helped. If you want to see more videos like this one where I review assistive technology products, or videos where I just talk candidly about my experiences as a student with a learning disability, dyslexia, you can check out my channel. I have over 60 videos already posted. You can also go to my website, which will be the first link in the description below, where I have a lot of my reviews in written content. And there's also content that is exclusive to the website, so I suggest that you check out both. All right, I know you can do this. I hope you have fun reading, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.